Good morning, everyone. In today's advanced networking lecture, we are going to be looking at network address translation. In the previous week, we have covered DHCP in the last lecture. So, network address translation, we sort of briefly touched upon that there. One of the things that I sort of talked about is the limitations of available IP addresses in certain IP spaces and why we may want to use private IP addresses and so on. So network address translation is in many ways about that, but there's also certain other things about that as well. So that is what we are going to be discussing in today's lecture. So when we consider IP addresses, particularly IPv4 addresses, there we can see that there are two types of IPv4 addresses that we would use when we are setting up our networks. One is the type of addresses that are normally used in private networks, so inside office environment, inside a university, for example. So those are the private IPv4 addresses, and then we also have the public IPv4 addresses. So that is what you would normally get from a internet service provider. So whatever the devices that are normally attached in the internal network, in the private network, so those devices will have a private IP address. So if you have a number of computers connected to your home router, all of those computers, smartphones, and all of those are going to get a private IP address. So then when those devices are communicating with a server that is in the public internet, they will have to talk to a public IP address. So between these two, the communication still needs to happen, but from a public point of view, for a device that is in the public network, it will not identify which private IP address this belongs to. So it cannot particularly identify, say, I can have the same private IP address for my computer as you can have in your own home network. So both the home networks can have the same private IP addresses repeating for devices. So a public device, a public server, for example, will not be able to distinguish which address it needs to communicate. So when we are communicating in the public network, it will only communicate to the public IP address of the router. So if you are provided with a router by the ISP, the communication will be based on that. So what we use network address translation is to translate between this private IP address and the public IP address. So for example, say if we have a private computer here in the private network, and that needs to communicate to a public server in the public space, then we need to do an address translation at the point of the router, so whatever the private IP address can be translated into a public IP address when it is communicating with the server. So that is the basic idea of network address translation. So we take the private IP address from one end and convert it or map it with a public IP address at the other end. So the communication between these two ends can happen. So if we see in this example, what we have here is, so we have a private network. So in the private network, we have these private IP addresses. So these devices are private IP addresses, and there are two private networks that are identified here. And then this router is the one that is connecting between the private and the public network. So this router will have to have network address translation enabled. So it will be able to translate whatever the requests that are coming to one of these devices into something that is still communicatable with the rest of the internet. So the network address translation, the main role of network address translation is to translate between these private IP addresses and the public IP addresses that are given by normally an ISP. So whatever the internal IP addresses may be, so regardless of, say, if it is a 10.10 IP address or 11.10 IP address, when it is going out of the network from this router, from that point onwards, it is going to be the public IP address. It is not going to be whatever the packets that are going out of that router, router 2, are going to carry the public IP address, not the private IP address. And then when the responses come back, so when the responses are back from the server, so if the server is responding back, it will be received at the router, and then the router will translate that back into whatever the relevant device under the network. So when we consider IP addresses, we would have couple of IP address sort of different types of IP addresses we can see in this type of network address translation. So the first thing is the inside address, so inside local address. So this is what we have as the inside address, but it is the local IP address that we have here. So the local network address, the local private network address that we have there. Then whatever the communication that is happening from the local network to the outside network will have to be aimed at a outside server address, which should be a public IP address. So that is the outside address that we will have. So that will be the outside address. So the outside IP address, which will be a public IP address. Then when we consider, like in terms of the packets that we have there, again we will have two types of addresses. One is the local and the global addresses that we can see. So the local addresses are what is local to that particular environment. So for the server, this is the local address. For the local computer, so the private computer, this is the local address. Whereas if we consider the global address, there will be a global address that is normally attached to the router that will be associated with the private network, any device on the private network, and then there will be a global address for the server as well. So we can identify these addresses in these sort of four different categories. So one is, what is the understanding, what is the address that is known in the private network or locally, or what is the address that is known in the public network or globally. Then what is the address that is used inside in the network that where it belongs to, and what is the address that it uses when it is communicating to the outside. So for example, in the case of a server, individual servers may carry their own public address. So that's why their global address and the local address are the same, because each server will have its own public IP address, because it is always needs to communicate with various requests that are coming from the outside world. Whereas the private computers inside a network, they will not carry their own public address. So they will have a separate local address, which is a private address, and then they will have a separate global address, that is the public address that is given by the router or the NAT router. So that is how we would separate these different types of IP addresses in these networks. So now let's look at some of the basics about how network address translation works. So we will first identify the type of addresses that we have here. So in this network we have a inside local address, which is the private network address that is associated with this particular device. Then we have an inside global address that is normally would be associated with the router. Then we would have an outside local and outside global address, and as we said, this could be the same for both. So that would be the IP address for the server. So now when we take a request that is going from this computer, that request will first originate with the local IP address. Whatever the local IP address, that would be the originating IP address. Initially the request will carry that particular local IP address. But then when it passes through the router, the NAT router will refer to this table and identify what should be the global address for that packet. So the global address for that packet would be a public IP address. So then when the packet is received at the server, it will be received as if it is coming from this particular public IP address. So it started with a private IP address, but when it reaches the outside network, it is going to go with the public IP address. With that particular public IP address is what it is going to use. So when the server is considered, that server only knows this request is coming from this public IP address. It doesn't have to know about what are the private IP addresses or anything. So for the server, it has a global IP address to communicate back and forth. So that is there. Then the next step is, say if the server is now responding back, so the server will communicate again from its own public IP address, but server will respond. Whatever the responses from the server will be sent back to this public IP address. So the server will respond back to the same public IP address the request came from, which is the inside global address in the NAT table. So then when the request is received at the router, at the NAT router, it is again going to check the NAT table and identify what is the inside local address for that particular request, and it will translate that and send the packet to that particular device in the network. So the destination address will be replaced from the public address here to the private address here. So that is the basic way the network address translation happens in outgoing and incoming requests. Now let's look at some of the different ways this NAT can be enabled or NAT can be established in routers. So there are a few different ways we can do that. So the basic ways what we looked so far, which is we have a set of entries that says this is the inside address, this is the outside address, and so on. So that basic way of mapping is what we call as static NAT. So in here what we have is static address translation. So we have a particular private IP address, and for each private IP address we will have a global address or a public IP address. So here the point is we are not going to get the advantage of sharing these IP addresses, because we will have, for each of the devices in the local network, they are going to have their own global IP address. So there is a one-on-one mapping between the private IP addresses and the public IP addresses. So the communication in the inside network will happen in the private IP address, and then it will do the NAT translation, and the outside world communication will happen in the public IP address, but those IP addresses will still be one-on-one map between these devices. So this will be more commonly used for, not for individual users or personal computers per se, but more for servers, because servers will need to have public IP addresses, but inside our network we still need to use our private IP addresses. So that's how we can communicate, we can interconnect them inside our routers and so on. So inside our network we will give them private IP addresses, and then we will do one-on-one NAT translation to public IP addresses. So this is one way of doing network address translation, that is static NAT. But the main disadvantage of static NAT is that we don't have enough, we will not have enough private addresses, or these will be always assigned to a particular device. So we cannot reuse these IP addresses for other purposes. So say if we have 3 public IP addresses, we can only connect 3 private network devices to the public network, because only those 3 have public IP addresses, because they are already assigned to some other devices. An alternative is what is called as dynamic NAT. Here what we have is, we have a set of local devices, and then we have a pool of global addresses. So whenever a new local device is connected, it will be assigned a public IP address. So the other list of addresses will be still available. So then whenever new devices are attached to the network, one of these will be assigned to those networks. So again, we may run out of these addresses at some point, but we can still assign them in a much more efficient manner than we can do with static NAT. So the main difference between dynamic NAT and static NAT is, in static NAT, the association is permanent. So we have these associations between these local addresses and these global addresses, and that is very permanent in static NAT. Whereas in dynamic NAT, that can be assigned when these devices come along, and they can be assigned in a first come first serve basis. But still, with both of those approaches, we still have the problem of running out of these IP addresses. So say if we have 12 devices in the network, if all of them need to communicate with the public network at the same time, we still need to have 12 public IP addresses in the case of static or dynamic NAT. In both of those cases, we still, in static, they will be permanently assigned. In dynamic, they will be dynamically assigned. But other than that, we still need the same number of IP addresses as the number of devices that we have to communicate to the public network. So that is a problem. Say for example, in the case of a university, there can be 1,000 students, and if we want to do this type of address translation, this type of network address translation, we will need 1,000 public IP addresses to individually assign each of those devices across to the outside network. Even if we do dynamic NAT, we will still need that many number of IP addresses. So that is a big significant disadvantage, and that is very impossible in many organizational network environments. Even in the case of a home network, you may have say 5 to 10 devices if you are counting all the smartphones and laptops and computers and all these devices. You may have 5 to 10 devices easily in a home. So if we consider large organizations, they are going to have even large number of devices, and having that many public addresses is impossible, and that defeats the purpose of sort of combining it through a NAT router. So for that purpose, we use another approach called port address translation. So here what we are doing is not just considering the individual address there, but we also consider a particular port from which these requests are coming from. So the request will not only the IP address is considered, but also the port is considered. So then the request can be translated in a much more efficient manner. So we will look at port address translation in a bit more detail now. So what we have with port address translation is, we will start with, say, the same devices in the inside network, and all of them are going to have their own private IP addresses. So they are going to have their own private IP addresses. But whenever a request is sent to the outside network, each of the devices will be associated, each of the devices that are communicating will also be associated with a particular port number. So we will have a port number also associated with this address translation. For each of these devices, we will have separate port numbers. So this one will have a separate port number, and the other device will have a separate port number. So now what we have is, not only the IP address is considered, but also the port address is, port number is considered. So the IP address and the combination of the IP address and the port address, both of them are considered here. So for the two separate devices, we will have two separate combination of IP address, port address pairs. So whenever the requests are sent out and when they are received by the server, the server will see the request as coming from this particular port address as well. It will use the same IP address, but so we can still share the same IP address, same global IP address for both these networks. So both the networks will have the same global IP address, but they will have separate port numbers. So one device will have the port number 1555, and the other device will have the port number 1331, whereas they still use the same public IP address. So whenever these requests are received by a server, the server can respond back with the same public IP address and the port number. So whenever the request is received back at the network address translation router or the port address translation router at the router point of view, here at this point, based on those ports, the responses can be easily identified as whether they belong to this device or the other device. So the port is also now used as an identifier to identify between devices. So with this approach, we can only use a single global address for the private network. We can still use a single global address for the private network, and different devices and different connections will use their separate ports to identify between them. So here the port becomes the key identifier or the separator between the devices from the point of view of the global network. So now when we use port address translation, now one of the considerations that has to be done is, how do we assign the ports for each of these connections? So for that purpose, we can use a number of approaches. Either the device itself can pick a port and then try to communicate with that, or they may try to communicate with the router, and the router may assign one of the ports that is not already used. So one of those different ports can be assigned to individual connections. So these ports, if say for example, if the two of the internal devices are using the same port internally, we will have to assign a separate port at least for the outside connection. So in the internal network, because here we can still separate these things because these IP addresses are separate. So we have separate IP addresses, so even if we use the same port, it is okay. But for the outside world, we cannot use the same ports because the IP addresses are same. So we will have to use a separate port for each of these sessions. So in the NAT table, in the address translation table, we should have a separate port for that particular connection. So from the device point of view, they may choose the same ports as if they want, but the network address translation point of view, they should be assigned a unique port for each of the connections that are outgoing from the router. So each of the connections that are connecting to the outside network will use the same IP address, so they should have separate ports for that public IP address component. From the inside network, because they will have separate IP addresses, separate private IP addresses, they may use the same port if that is the case. So if we consider or if we compare network address translation and port address translation, the main difference is in static NAT or in any net, in static or dynamic NAT, in network address translation, what we have is for each of the devices, for each of the internal IP addresses, internal local IP addresses, we should have a separate public IP address assigned. Whereas in port address translation, we can use the same public IP address and only separate using the port, only by changing the port number for each of those connections or each of those sessions. So we have already talked about few of the advantages why we want to use, few of the reasons why we want to use network address translation. So the main thing is we can conserve the use of public IP addresses, because public IP addresses are expensive, they are limited, so you cannot give public IP addresses to all the devices that are connected to a network. So you may want to use limited number of public IP addresses and then connect many devices from the internal network to the outside network. So that is one of the advantages. And the other advantage is we can use things like, if we can create sort of internal network with various topologies. So we have discussed about having redundancies and all these things. So they can be built in the inside network using the private IP address space. We can configure them in any way we want, so we can have more flexibility in the inside network, and then we can do network address translation to connect them to the outside network. So that's why even if we are having servers with their own public IP addresses, we would still have them in the internal network with private IP addresses and do address translation to these servers as well. Even when they have their own public IP address particularly given to a single server, we may still want to do connect them through this network address translation, so they can have their they can be connected as part of this internal network structure. So for example, we can have redundant servers running on two different private addresses, and they can be mapped with the single public IP address in a redundancy manner. And given all the devices and everything inside the network is connected to each other and there will be a lot of communication in the inside network, it will be better all the internal devices have the same IP address space and they are able to communicate, and then we use the public IP address only for the external communication. And sort of one of the other advantages is also security, because by only exposing a single public IP address or limited number of public IP addresses to the outside world, anyone connecting from the outside world will not be able to particularly identify the internal nature of the internal network just by looking at these IP addresses, because all of these requests are coming from the same IP address. So it may not be possible to differentiate between these different devices, these different requests. Even though there are a number of these advantages with network address translation, we can still have a number of disadvantages, because when we do network address translation, at each of these points, at each of the connections, it should be stopped at the router and that address translation should happen. So that can somewhat impact on the performance of this network communication that is happening there. And similarly, because the IP packets are modified at the network address translation point, the IP addresses are changed, so the packets are modified. So that is again going to take some additional time. So it is not as if the same packet is going to be forwarded across. There is going to be some change happening, and that can again impact on the performance. Similarly, we cannot do end-to-end tracing again for the same reason. If we are using some type of static NAT, it may be a bit more possible, but in other cases we may not be able to identify the exact device from which the request is coming from, and so on will not be so transparent in many cases. And things like network tunneling and certain type of network connectivities and so on can also be impacted if we are doing network address translation, because of these ports being shared and so on. It may impact on establishing that type of connectivity. So there are certain disadvantages in using network address translation or port address translation, but we also have a number of advantages, and it is very commonly used in many network situations, in most organizational settings, in most home networks, in pretty much most networks that you would encounter, NAT will be used. So there is a commonly used technology in most networks, even though there are certain disadvantages. You may have to work around those disadvantages based on the requirements of that particular network. So now let's look at some of the basic ways of configuring network address translation in devices. So the first one we will look at is how to configure static NAT, and the basic way of configuring static NAT is fairly simple. We use this command ipnat inside source static, and we give the local IP address and the global IP address. So in static NAT, the main thing is we have a one-on-one mapping between a public address and a global address. So we will do that mapping in the setting. Then depending on the device, we may have to specify what is the interface that is going to connect this to this particular address. So we specify the address pair for the network address translation, and we would specify the particular interface for the device there, and then we would have to specify that is a inside device and that is the particular inside part of the network. So what is the port or the interface that is connecting to the inside part of the network. Then we would have to go and specify the outside interface. So that is what is the outside interface that we will have to connect to, and we would say that is the outside NAT that we are connecting to. So in static NAT, the main things that we consider is an inside private IP address, an outside global IP address, and there will be a one-on-one mapping. So initially we set up that one-on-one mapping, and then we specify the inside interface and we specify the outside interface, and that concludes the configuration for static NAT. So one of the main things that we will have to configure here is any of the interfaces that belong to the inside of the network. So any of the interfaces that are connecting to the inside of the network will have to be particularly identified as NAT inside devices. So that way only it can be configured with the private IP address, for example. So unless we configure this inside IP address, it will not be, or inside specify that as an inside interface, then that interface will not be used for any of the inside communications. So that is one of the things that we have to remember when we are considering. So specifying which interfaces are inside and which interfaces are outside. So if we look at again an example of how static NAT would work when we are communicating with a device. So if we, for example, initiate a connection to a particular web server, so we may initiate a connection to a particular web server. So we will initiate that with the public IP address of the web server. So we would communicate like that. Then that request would be received at the router, and the router will do the address translation or the address replacement to identify what is the particular request for the inside network or the outside network, depending on how we are considering which is the inside and the outside network. So it will do the whether if it is an incoming or the packet coming back, it will be considered like that. So then when the response is given back, when the response is going back, again it will have to be translated back at the device, and it will have to be converted back into a public IP address. So what you can see here is between this in between this barrier of network address translation, what we have here is in the inside network we have all private IP addresses for all our communication, and the outside network we will use all the public IP addresses for the communication. Then as with any router configuration, you can use the standard show configuration, show commands to see if you have considered if you have configured them properly. Say for example, you can use the show NAT translation command to see what are the configurations that are established. So if it is initially, when it is initially configured, when you have initially configured in the static NAT, so the NAT table is only going to have this pair of inside inside and global, local and global for the inside networks. That's all it's going to have. But when an active session is going on, now it may have additional information about the outside local and outside global addresses as well. So when it is initially set up, it will only show the static configuration that we have set up. But when the network is actively working, it will also show the currently connected network and so on. So it will show that as well. And then we can also use things like NAT statistics commands to see how many connections, how many translations have occurred and so on. So these commands can be used to verify if we have configured them properly. Say for example, if we haven't configured the inside outside networks properly and so on, we may be able to see how those configurations are done in the settings. So now let's look at how we can do dynamic NAT configurations. So the main difference between dynamic NAT and static NAT is, in static NAT we had this permanent configuration between these IP addresses and the global IP addresses, whereas in dynamic NAT we are going to have a pool of global IP addresses and the local IP addresses can be mapped to them on a first come first serve basis. So when we are configuring them, we'll have to initially start with creating that IP address pool. So we will start with the NAT pool. So that is the IP address pool, and we can give a name, and we can give start and end IP addresses to say what is that NAT pool. Then we will also create an access list that is going to permit certain IP addresses for translation. So only certain source addresses will be allowed for translation. So what we have here is, we will have a pool of public IP addresses, then we will have a set of devices that are allowed for using those IP addresses. Not all private IP addresses will be allowed, only a select number of private IP addresses will be allowed for translation into public IP address. So we will create that in an access list. Then we will have to associate that access list with a NAT. So that is why what we do here in terms of associating that particular access list with a particular pool. So we do we take the pool and then we associate it with the source list here. Then, as with static NAT, we will have to go and specify what are the interfaces and whether the interfaces are outside or inside interfaces. So that is the basic steps for configuring dynamic NAT. So in this example, again, we are going to create a pool of saying what is the IP addresses. We can additionally give the net mask and so on. We will create an access list that is going to permit certain IP addresses to use the public IP addresses. Then we are going to associate that particular pool to that particular source list, and then we are going to identify certain interfaces as the inside NAT interface and certain interfaces as the outside NAT interface. So that is basically how we configure dynamic NAT. So when dynamic NAT is being used, again the address translation happens in a fairly similar manner to static NAT. The only difference is when the initial association with the public and private address happens, that will happen at a on when the network connection is established. Later on, in terms of how the IP addresses are used in the outside and inside network is fairly same in dynamic net as well. So again, the address translations that happens between when they are passing between local and outside networks is fairly same between dynamic net and static net. Again, we can use similar commands to do verifications about settings. Again, we can use show net translations to see how the network address translations are happening and so on. And also we can use the same to see the statistics and so on. So the same commands or similar commands will apply here as well. So the third type of address translation is what we identified as port address translation. So here, one of the things again we'll have to do is we'll have to have a pool of public IP addresses. So we can have a single public IP address, or we can have a pool of public IP addresses. Then we would again define a access control list or access list to permit only certain devices to be attached to that pool of devices. Then we would again specify or again associate them between the pool and the source list, and then we specify the inside and outside interfaces. So again, in this part, it is fairly similar in terms of configuring the address pool and associating them with an access list and configuring the outside and inside interfaces. The main difference that you would see between the previous one and this one is the use of the overload command here. So by using the overload command here, we are specifying that this is a port address translation. So that is the main difference in terms of how we are doing the configuration here. Then in terms of the address translation that are happening, so that is what we already discussed previously. So it is going to identify or differentiate using the port numbers. Even if the local port numbers are the same, they are going to use separate port numbers when they are connecting to global networks or the public networks, outside networks. So if we look at how port address translation is going to work in when the communication is happening, here we will see some differences compared to the previous dynamic or static net. The main difference being here we are going to, all the outgoing packets may still use the same public IP address, so they are not going to have separate public IP addresses, but they are going to have separate port numbers. Even when they have the same port numbers for the internal part of the network, they will have separate internal IP addresses, but when they go to the outside, they will have separate or the same IP addresses and separate port numbers. So that is the main difference that we would see between port address translation and network address translation, static and dynamic NAT. So when the requests are coming back again, so the responses will also come back to the same ports from which the requests were initiated from. So the requests went from these combinations. So the requests went from these combinations. So the responses will also come back to that particular IP address port combination. But then when it is time to forward it to the internal network, they may be translated back again to the original ports and the original IP addresses. So the translation part is fairly similar, but here we are considering the port as the main identifier. Then in terms of verifying commands, again we will have similar commands to do show net address translations and statistics and so on. So those will be fairly similar. The main difference between this and the previous ones is now the ports are also a key identifier in this listing. So in the previous one, only the IP addresses were listed. Here, the ports are also a key identifier to be listed here. So now let's look at some of the other things that we will have to do when we are using network address translation in our networks. So say in our inside network, we have a number of devices, for example, number of servers. And as we know, standard servers will run on particular port numbers. So for example, a web server may run on port 80, a FTP server may run on port 20 and 21, a telnet server may run on port 23, an HTTPS request may go to 443. Likewise, different services may require to be connected at different ports. So if we are receiving requests from the outside world, we may receive them with these particular ports, and for those servers also they may expect requests on those ports. The services will still run port 80. So what we may have to do is, whatever the request that is coming may have to be translated into the same port and forwarded onto the network. So instead of assigning any port for the forwarding, we will have to specify a particular port for forwarding into the internal network or the inside network. So after the address translation from public IP address and a port, so from the public IP address, say if it is a web server, the request would come with the global IP address and port 80. But when we are translating it into the private space, we will translate into a private IP address and still need to assign it to port 80. So in the NAT router, in the NAT configurations, we can specify what is called port forwarding to assign particular ports to particular devices. So this particular web server will always receive requests that are coming to port 80. Port 20 and 21 may be forwarded to this FTP server. Likewise, we can configure these sort of statically assigned port configurations in NAT. So that is what we call as port forwarding. So this is something that you may do even in a home network, for example. If you are having, in a small home office or that type of an environment where you may want to run a web server. If you want to run a web server, you may go into the router setting and sometimes you may do this type of a port forwarding. So what happens here is, any request that is coming to port 80 to this router will be all directly forwarded onto the particular server IP address that we have configured. So that is the port forwarding configuration that we may do. So this is if you want to run any type of servers inside a particular private network, you may have to do port forwarding, because normally server request will come from particular, also identified using particular port addresses for standard services, for example. So if we can think about configuring port forwarding in a router, but we may have to use the inside source command to specify the local port and the global port there. So what we can do is IP NAT inside source static, and we can say TCP, this is the IP address, and port 80 will be this global IP address and that particular port. So likewise, we can do either same ports or different ports. We can do that type of mapping as we want. So what we have discussed so far is basically about network address translation for IPv4. And how about network translation for IPv6? So the main, at the point when IPv6 was being developed, it was already identified that these issues with IPv4, limited IP addresses and so on. So IPv6 inherently had sort of very large address spaces that can cater to a large number of devices. But still it has the concept of a private network, because we still want to establish, so having private networks, private topologies and so on is something that we would still want to use, even if we can have unlimited number of public IP addresses. So what we may do is we may still use public IP addresses and unlimited amount of public IP addresses if that is possible on IPv6, but we may still want to use some form of private IP addresses there. So in the case of IPv4, we can have different types of private IP addresses spaces, and then they are mapped to internet using a network address translation. But in the case of IPv6, in IPv6 we have in the address itself, in a standard IPv6 address itself, we can use the concept of a prefix. So we can divide an IPv6 address into a number of parts, number of key parts there, and we can change these prefixes and so on to differentiate between a local IP address and what can be used as a global IP address. So if we use the prefix FC00/7, so this particular prefix, if we use one of these as the prefix, then that can be used, or that would be considered as a that type of address will be considered as a IPv6 unique local address, or ULAS. So these are similar to private IP addresses in IPv4. So these can be used for connectivity for sort of internal network connectivity, but we will not be able to connect them to the outside world. One of the other things that we would encounter in sort of IPv6 spaces, in networks that are using IPv6 and IPv4, is we may encounter what is called certain networks that are only running in IPv6 and certain networks that are running only in IPv4. So in those situations, we may need an address translation or network address translation, not between public and private IP addresses, but between IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. So we may use a similar concept of address translation, and packets may go back and forth between public and private addresses, or rather IPv4 and IPv6 addresses, but we will use some form of a network address translation here as well. So these may happen in situations where we have some organizational networks that are IPv6 only, and maybe we are connecting to the IPv4 internet or IPv6 internet. So we can have different type of networks interconnecting, and we may use what is called NAT64, which is network address translation for between IPv4 and IPv6 networks. So finally, we will look at some of the common issues that we may encounter when we are configuring a network address translation in our devices. So as always, the first point to start with is to say go and check the configurations using the statistics commands, and also verify the NAT translations to see if the NAT translations are happening as we expect. So if we have a network and this is the network configuration that we have, the private IP addresses and the public IP addresses, we can go and verify in network address translation to see if those are mapped properly. So if those things are configured properly, so that would be a starting point for troubleshooting. Then we can also do NAT debugging to see how these step-by-step configurations or step-by-step translations are happening. So if we enable NAT debugging, we can see what are the requests coming, the sources, source IP addresses, and how they are translated into destinations and so on. So those so here the source IP address is translated into this source address and the destination is left as it is. Here the source is this, the destination is translated from this to this. So likewise, we can see what are the individual translations happening inside the router, and again that may be useful to identify if there are some misconfigurations or things have been configured differently. And one of the other things we can check is, particularly in the case of PAT or dynamic NAT, is we have this access control list. We will configure these access control lists, so we can also go and verify if the access lists are configured properly. So we can do the show access list command to see if they are all the necessary IP addresses are assigned to be part of that pool. So one of the common things that we already identified is the problem of particularly configuring this inside and outside interfaces, correctly identifying what is the inside interface and what is the outside interface. So if they are configured incorrectly, the connectivity will not happen because the translation will not happen appropriately across these interfaces. So we have to specify them correctly. Say for example, if we incorrectly set them, we have to go and issue the no IPNAT outside and no IPNAT inside commands first, and then we have to specify them again to the correct directions, or inside to outside and outside to inside. So that is also one of the common problems that we would encounter when we are configuring network address translation in our devices. So that's all we have to cover in network address translation. In today's lesson, we looked at how network address translation can be done, particularly for IPv4 networks, and also so why that may not be a bigger issue or bigger necessity in IPv6 environments, but still we may do certain type of network address translations and concept of private IP addresses in IPv6 as well. And we also looked at some of the ways of configuring different types of network address translation, static NAT, dynamic NAT, and port address translation, and some of the common issues that we may encounter and how we can troubleshoot them. So that concludes our discussion for today in a network address translation. And are there any questions on things that we discussed so far? If there are no questions at this point, you can always ask them if you have anything through your usual communication means. So there will be one more lesson, and most likely that will be published as a recorded lesson instead of having an additional live class. That will be on certain device configurations and maintenance and so on. So that will be there. And as always, you will have your standard assignment submissions, the practicals, packet tracer practicals that you will have to complete. So those are available on LMS as well, along with the guidance videos as well. So complete them on time and submit. Other than that, that's all for today. Thanks for joining in this class. See you next time. Bye.